N69.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chair, I'm Assemblymember Bill Monning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. AB 1069 is a bill intended to restore the public's confidence and trust in state agencies when a decision is made requiring a pest eradication effort to occur. In 2008, former Assemblymember John Laird authored legislation that was chaptered into law outlining requirements of the Department of Food and Agriculture once a determination is made that a pest eradication effort will be performed. Among these requirements includes the specification for establishing a telephone hotline. AB 1069 is a measure to clarify and expound on the language included in Mr. Laird's bill. Specifically, AB 1069 requires CDFA to make the telephone hotline number toll-free and staffed by public health personnel who are familiar with the pesticide being applied. Additionally, this bill requires all reported adverse health complaints to be entered into a database. Finally, AB 1069 requires that the toll-free hotline number be included on the notices sent out to the public prior to the eradication, as well as its intention to be used for reporting adverse health consequences. Now I'd like to turn over to my witness, Mr. Paul Shramsky, State Director for Pesticide Watch, with the permission of the Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. Senators, AB 1069 clarifies and strengthens the legislation passed by Mr. Laird last year. The bill utilizes existing federal funds that are allocated to eradication programs to provide this toll-free telephone hotline for individuals that call with concerns about pesticide spraying. As we learned about controversies from last year, we need someone at the other end of the line to answer questions. Unfortunately, most phone operators, such as Poison Control, do not currently have the expertise for emergency pesticide spraying programs. This bill would ensure that they have the training and background not only for pesticide products, but also to help refer residents and their doctors to the right information. With the prospect of new pests entering our borders as a result of global trade and global warming, we need to be prepared for future pests and how we'll address those problems. This bill would allow us to better collect information about pesticide spraying incidences for pesticide spraying illness. From other incidences like the light brown apple moth, we learned the state had a poor system for cataloging these effects. In fact, it was left to one lone public individual to collect this information in his P.O. box. So with this bill, we will enable phone operators to better support and collect this information so we understand what is taking place on the ground. So to provide clarity and expertise to the public in cases of large-scale pesticide spraying, I hope you will support this bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, great. Any other witnesses in support? Opposition? Okay. Ms. Monning, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and take a vote on this bill when we get
Request your aye vote and just point out no opposition on file. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I understand we're waiting for Mr. Huffman, but he's chairing a...
He just came in and was chairing the committee.
Okay. Okay.
Perhaps
Yeah. Maybe we can call. Okay.
437.
Let's go ahead and establish a quorum at this time. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Flores.
Here.
Flores here. Maldonado. Here. Maldonado here. Hancock. Hollingsworth. Pavley. Here. Pavley here.
Okay. We have any idea when?
Adrian went up to get him, but did not answer the committee.
Okay. All right. No. No, I'm going to wait. Let's go. Abel, if Huffy gets here, will you go ahead and start? Huffman gets here. I'm going to do
Second half of here. I was wondering.
Okay, let's resume. We're on AB 1437 by Assemblymember Huffman. And Assemblymember, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for the delay. I'd like to start out by thanking the Chair for being my principal co-author on this bill, and Senators Maldonado and Hancock as well for being co-authors. This is an important measure. It passed off the Assembly floor with 65 votes. And as you're aware, last November, California voters overwhelmingly approved Prop 2. By a 63.5% margin, establishing minimum animal welfare and safety standards for egg-laying hens. This bill simply ensures that all eggs sold in California must comply with the voters' expectations when they passed those standards. Specifically, AB 1437 will require that all shelled eggs sold in California after January of 2015 be in compliance with those standards. The Association of California Egg Farmers is asking me to add to the bill some clarification on how much space to provide an egg-laying hen and what housing systems will comply with existing state law. And I have to say I don't disagree with them that it would be nice to have greater certainty as to what compliance requires. However, the other stakeholders on the Humane Society and others are urging me not to do that. So I just wanted the committee to know that as the bill moves forward, I'm going to continue to engage with both sides in this debate, and I'm going to try to find some point of consensus. Ideally, I would love to be able to give the egg farmers the certainty that they need without in any way changing Prop 2. We will explore whether that is possible as the bill moves forward, but my request today is that you support the bill as is and give me a chance to continue that dialogue.
Okay. Witnesses support?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Fearing on behalf of the Humane Society of the United States. As a strong proponents of Proposition 2, we are also here in strong support of AB 1437 and would respectfully request your aye vote.
Dr. Barbara Hodges on behalf of the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association in strong support.
Virginia Hanley with PAWPAC. Support.
Barbara Schmitz on behalf of Born Free USA and our California members in support.
Good morning. Carolyn Mullen on behalf of Farm Sanctuary and our more than 200,000 members nationwide, of which 33,000 reside here in California. We strongly support AB 1437. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Laura Hoffman. I'm with the Planning and Conservation League, and we are in support.
Any opposition at this point in time? Please come up.
Hello, my name is Dennis Albiani. I represent the Association of California Egg Farmers. We've been working closely, as the Assembly member said, with the Assembly member and the Humane Society of the United States on this measure since the Assembly member invited us into our office to discuss it. One of the things we have made clear since the very beginning is we need enforceable legal standards. And this is a criminal statute that puts the farmer and their employees at risk of significant fines and jail time. And we believe that this is an appropriate vehicle to do that in, and we're working with the Assembly member as well as we've had discussions with the Humane Society on numerous occasions to do that. Today we have Arnie Reebley, who's a fourth-generation egg farmer from Sonoma County, here to talk a little bit about this issue. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. As Dennis said, I'm Arnie Reebley, a fourth-generation egg farmer from Sonoma County. I'm also here this morning in my role as president of the Association of California Egg Farmers. My partners and I, and our families before us, have been producing eggs commercially in Sonoma County every day of every week for over 100 years. Many other egg-producing families in the state have similar histories. In fact, Mr. Flores, you have a large producer in your area, the Demler family, probably one of the older and largest producers in this state. We appreciate Member Huffman for sponsoring the bill before you today. We, the egg industry, have been working very closely with Mr. Huffman in order to meet consumer expectations for animal welfare and food safety. The dilemma that we have with this morning is expanding the requirements of Prop 2 to out-of-state producers when we, the in-state producers, have no idea of how to comply. Prop 2 is extremely vague and very unclear as to its requirements. The text of the initiative says that no farmer or his employee may confine any egg-laying hen for all or the majority of any day in a manner that prevents the hen from lying down, standing up, and fully extending her limbs without touching the side of an enclosure or other egg-laying hens. It defines an enclosure as any cage, crate, or other structure which is used to confine a hen. I remind everyone that nowhere in Prop 2 language is the term cage-free mentioned. What does this language mean? How many square inches per hen do I need to provide? This is a criminal statute, with criminal penalties being a $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. And remember, these penalties apply to both me, the farmer, and to my employees. With these types of penalties and liabilities, anyone involved in egg production needs to know the rules, and the rules must be crystal clear. This is a rational and a reasonable request. We, the members of the egg industry, have asked the proponents of Prop 2, namely the Humane Society of the United States, why not include rules? In Europe, they have standards that call for 93 square inches per hen, and there are no criminal liabilities. We have met with HSUS on numerous occasions, and they rebuke our discussions for regulation. I, for one, am simply at a loss to understand their reasoning, unless it is for the simple fact that without rules, they can continue to leave interpretation to courts and juries with probable different verdicts on similar allegations. This will become a legal nightmare for the court system and for the egg industry. We, the egg farmers of California, need clarification about the directives of Prop 2, and we believe that AB 1437 is the appropriate bill to include these requirements. Thank you for hearing my concerns this morning.
Great, thank you. Any other opposition?
Yes, I'm the spokesperson for We the People for Pets, and I'm here on behalf of Diane Amble, who could not make it today. And her statement is the following. What AB 1437 represents is legislation cloaked in the guise of animal welfare, while in actuality is a racketeering scheme and artifice to follow up on the damage already being felt by consumers and farmers by Prop 2. Who will determine what is proper hen welfare? There is no governmental agency or lawfully inspects other than the USDA. This bill would not only violate Interstate Commerce Act, but it will open the door for a slick form of old-style mob, quote-unquote, protectionism. Funny how the animal rights group that is sponsoring this bill, HSUS, has board members, including the CEO, invested in the for-profit company Humane USA that purports to do this, certifying humane animal welfare for a price. This bill does not address the international importation of eggs and the standards by which hens are kept in other countries like Mexico and China, nor does it address liquid eggs sold by the bucket or powdered eggs. We ask why a more expensive and best quality egg form, the shell egg, is under attack by our own legislature and the special interest group. The answer is there is more money to be made controlling its distribution, which also violates Title 18, the RICO section of the Federal Code, which specifically prohibits the regulation of eggs. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Louis Brown on behalf of the California Grocers Association. We were hoping that there was an opportunity for the proponents and opponents to kind of work through some of these issues. Fortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So fortunately, we have to oppose the bill. We're concerned on two issues. The one, not sure that it's actual legal that this can be done. And secondly, if it does move forward, it's going to limit choice, increase prices for consumers, and therefore opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Before the opposition runs away, or folks that can come up with just a few questions about some of the statements that were made today, particularly our operator, just so we can get some clarity. You're asking for rules and regulations in the legislation, and how long is it going to take you in your mind to be prepared to implement? You need the rules now in order to do something different?
In talking with the manufacturers of the equipment that we believe that we're going to need to be able to implement Prop 2, it's their belief that it will take 3 months per building to do a retrofit on every building that we have in the state. Now, understand that we currently have production going on in those states, in those buildings, and that current production is supplying to the population as we need it. So we can't conceivably take all of that production out at one time.
Sure.
In my own particular case, I've got 28 different buildings. And if I apply 28 times 3, that's 84 months. That's 7 years. I'm going to have to compress that into a 5-year time frame. Even if I started on January the 1st, 2010, I would have a 5-year time frame to compress everything in there. We need clarification as to what we can do, because when I look at the cost, senators, we're talking about a lot of money to me. In my particular case, we have approximately 1 million layers, and the cost of retrofit, just the equipment, is $15 per bird. That's $15 million. Okay, understand that I'm probably going to lose about 1/3 of my capacity, so I've got to create more space for those facilities. I'm going to need more land, which requires permits, which are a little difficult to get, and then I'm going to need to apply the building up there. The building is another $5 a bird, and then when I put the land under it, well, over in Sonoma County, I'm competing with the great folks for my land, and you know that land's going somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 an acre, bare dirt. So I'm talking about a $20-25 million, maybe a $30 million investment just for retrofit. I can guarantee you that my bank isn't real excited about giving me $25 or $30 million on a flyer. I'm going to have something down in hard concrete that I can service that kind of debt. And that's the only reasonable technology that I believe that we can use. It's the technology that has been approved in Europe. The cage-free systems have been taken out of Europe. We have reports here coming out of Sweden, and they'll be published in October this year, that say cage-free isn't the answer. We know that. Okay, and if we had to do cage-free, folks, just so you understand it, the cost is double. So instead of a $25 million bill, I'm going to have a $50 million bill. And guess who gets to pay for that? The consumer does. And as Louis said, you know, it's an unreasonable request for the consumer. And then we have to look at what's best for the humane treatment of the animal. And that's primary, the humane treatment of the animal. So, Mr. Flores, it's just unreasonable to ask us to go forward with something of this nature when we don't know what it is that we've got that we can do. What we're asking is, and Mr. Huffman knows this, is that this bill be directed back, hold back. Let's go to CDFA and let's go to public health. Let's sit down with them and let's develop a set of guidelines. And you know, we understand the Humane Society is going to be sitting there alongside of us, but let's get the guidelines in place before you go out and make a requirement of somebody in another state. We don't know what it is today. I think it's an unreasonable request. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other? Okay, members, any questions? Yes.
The analysis referenced the United Egg Producers cage-free standards as a possible blueprint. I didn't, Mr. Huffman, if you could comment on that. I don't know if that's something that the proponents of the bill are for and the opponents are against, or how does that play in this discussion?
That is a guideline that some egg producers use, and the Humane Society has offered that as their answer to what would comply with the standards and the performance standards in Prop 2. I think you would hear from Mr. Rebley and others that they believe that just referencing one trade association's guidelines doesn't give them the legal certainty that they want to go to their lenders. So I don't know that will satisfy all of their concerns. They've asked me to hold the bill, Senators. My request of you is that we actually keep it moving today to give me a chance to get these folks in the room.
I'm trying to understand the logic to holding the bill, because let's put it this way: if you want rules and regulations and you want to have them in statute so you understand them, then by holding the bill, you wouldn't have that in statute. So I'm not understanding why we want to hold the bill.
I guess if I were looking
so we do a bill next year, so therefore you have less time to comply because we had an agreement midway, so therefore it's finally in the bill and signed by the governor so you can understand what those rules and regulations are. I mean, you should be thanking Mr. Huffman for moving this through as you go to Health Committee and trying to figure out what those standards are, because without a statute, your bank's going to really be scratching its head. So this bill is needed. It's the reason I think it's signed on a bipartisan manner, because we want to see those rules and regulations. The question is the devil's in the details, but to hold back the process of a statute would only hurt your cause, I think. I don't know how. I mean, a bank is going to be less likely to say, let us know when the negotiations are over, when's the statute, so we can see it and see how you're going to comply and make our own numbers.
Senator, fair enough. And we have been engaged from day one with the Assembly member and working through the bill. What we need, though, is both to go together, to go forward together. And while I'd like to address Senator Hancock's discussion about the cage-free standards, those are clearly cage-free standards. If they're not advanced and put into law, if that happens to be it, then there's still questions of that performance requirement of the birds would impact both cage-free and cage producers. It's not, because they use the term structure. So the animals have to be able to perform that activity in any structure, anything. So our cage-free producers, which Mr. Rebley is one of them, he does cage-free too, and most of our producers do both cage-free as well as regular, as well as organic, as well as others. There's a cross-section, and we'll provide what the consumers will buy. And so this impacts everybody. And so what are the rules? And so we are glad to show that that the HSUS has actually realized that a standard is necessary by advancing that. So we appreciate that, and that they've recognized that this is a legitimate discussion, apparently. And so we look forward to working on that. However, we have not been able to advance that discussion any further. We do agree that if we could get this thing going and we could get some discussions going, again, our guys have flown across the United States and met with them, and we've been trying to have this discussion. If we could get this discussion going, then health committee's coming up. The legislature doesn't end until September 11th, so we can get this thing going, as we all know.
Thank you. That was actually going to be my point. It seems to me that there is a need for definitions, and the best way to get everybody at the table negotiating in good faith is knowing that there are deadlines, and we